Hello everyone and welcome to the Eva channel. My name is Marwa, aka Miss English Teacher. Here you can find everything you need to learn English. In today's video, we are reading together The Little Match Girl by Hans Andersen. Such a sad story. And honestly guys, one of the best ways for you to improve your English is reading. Even better if you can listen to the audiobooks at the same time. Before we get started, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Most terribly cold it was. It snowed and it was nearly quite dark. An evening, the last evening of the year. Terribly is another word for very, very, very. You can also say extremely cold, insanely cold, awfully cold. In this cold and darkness, there went along the street a poor little girl, bareheaded and with naked feet. Bare is another word for naked. For example, now I'm bareheaded. So if you're bareheaded, you're not covering your head. And if you're barefoot, it means you don't have any shoes on. When she left home, she had slippers on. It is true. But what was the good of that? They were very large slippers, which her mother had hitherto worn. Hitherto means before or formerly, or it could also mean up to this point in time. And of course, because we're talking in the past about her mother, had worn is in the past perfect. So wear is an irregular verb. So wear, wore, worn. So large were they, and the poor little thing lost them as she scuffled away across the street, because of two carriages that rolled by dreadfully fast. To scuffle away means to move in a hurried and confused or awkward way, right? There was these two carriages, which, by the way, a carriage is a vehicle with four wheels that is usually pulled by a horse. Again, dreadfully is another way of saying very, very, very. One slipper was nowhere to be found. The other had been laid hold of by an urchin, and off he ran with it. Nowhere to be found. This is an expression. It means that nobody was able to see it. And to lay hold of or take hold of something, it means to take possession. And an urchin is a young boy who is poorly dressed, right? So what happened here? A poor child took the other slipper and ran away with it. He thought it would do capitally for a cradle when he someday or other should have children himself. A cradle is a baby's bed. So the little maiden walked on with her tiny naked feet. They were quite red and blue from cold. Maiden is a girl or a young lady. She carried a quantity of matches in an old apron, and she held a bundle of them in her hand. A bundle means a few matches that are wrapped together. Nobody had bought anything of her the whole livelong day. No one had given her a single farthing. Farthing, this is an old money unit in the UK, equal to a quarter of an old penny. She crept along, trembling with cold and hunger, a very picture of sorrow, the poor little thing. The flakes of snow covered her long fair hair, which fell in beautiful curls around her neck. But of that, of course, she never once now thought. Fair is the opposite of dark. So for example, my hair is dark, but if you have a light brown or blonde, then you have fair hair. From all the windows, the candles were gleaming, and it smelled so deliciously of roast goose. For you know, it was New Year's Eve. Yes, of that she thought. Gleam means to shine brightly. In a corner formed by two houses, of which one advanced more than the other, she seated herself down and cowered together. To cower together means to bend down or move backward with your head down, like to curl up, right? So she cowered together. Her little feet she had drawn close up to her, but she grew colder and colder, and to go home she did not venture, for she had not sold any matches, and she could not bring a farthing of money. To venture is a synonym of the verb to dare, so she didn't want to take the risk and dangers of going home. From her father she would certainly get blows. To get blows means to have a physical punishment, and at home it was cold too, for above her she had only the roof through which the wind whistled. Even though the largest cracks were stopped up with straw and rags. And to whistle is this is to whistle. Her little hands were almost numbed with cold. Numb. Oh, a match might afford her a world of comfort. If she only dared take a single one out of the bundle, throw it against the wall, and warm her fingers by it. She drew one out. How it blazed, how it burned. It was a warm, bright flame, like a candle. As she held her hands over it, it was a wonderful light. Okay, we have a couple of words here. So blazed, or to blaze, means intensely burning fire. It seemed really to the little maiden as though she were sitting before a large iron stove with burnished brass feet and a brass ornament atop. The fire burned with such blessed influence. It warmed so delightfully. The little girl had already stretched out her feet to warm them too, but the small flame went out. The stove vanished. She had only the remains of the burnt-out match in her hand. To vanish means to disappear. The remains is what's left behind. She rubbed another against the wall. It burned brightly, and where the light fell on the wall, there the wall became transparent like a veil, so that she could see into the room. Transparent means allowing light to pass. For example, glass is transparent because you can see what's happening behind the object. On the table was spread a snow-white tablecloth. Upon it was a splendid porcelain service, and the roast goose was steaming famously with its stuffing of apple and dried plums. Porcelain service is a set of plates made of porcelain. This is famous. And what was still more capital to behold was the goose hopped down from the dish, reeled about on the floor with knife and fork in its breast, till it came up to the poor little girl. When the match went out and nothing but the thick, cold, damp wall was left behind, she lighted another match. Now there she was sitting under the most significant Christmas tree. It was still larger and more decorated than the one which she had seen through the glass door in the rich merchant's house. Magnificent means incredibly beautiful. Thousands of lights were burning on the green branches, and gaily colored pictures, such as she had seen in the shop windows, looked down upon her. The little maiden stretched out her hands towards them when the match went out. The lights of the Christmas tree rose higher and higher. She saw them now as stars in heaven. One fell down and formed a long trail of fire. A trail is a long, thin line. Someone is just dead, said the little girl, for her old grandmother, the only person who had loved her, and who was now no more, had told her that when a star falls, a soul ascends to God. Ascend means to rise or go up. She drew another match against the wall. It was again light, and in the luster there stood the old grandmother, so bright and radiant, so mild, and with such an expression of love. Luster of glow is a reflected light that was created by the match. "Grandmother," cried the little one, "oh, take me with you. You go away when the match burns out. You vanish like the warm stove, like the delicious roast goose, and like the magnificent Christmas tree." And she rubbed the whole bundle of matches quickly against the wall, for she wanted to be sure of keeping her grandmother near her. And the matches gave such a brilliant light that it was brighter than at noonday. Never formerly had the grandmother been so beautiful and so tall. She took the little maiden on her arm, and both flew in brightness and in joy. So high, so very high, and then above was neither cold, nor hunger, nor anxiety. They were with God. Formerly means before, but in the corner at the cold hour of dawn sat the poor girl with rosy cheeks and with a smiling mouth, leaning against the wall, frozen to death on the last evening of the old year. Dawn means the first daylight, sunrise. Stiff and stark sat the child there with her matches, of which one bundle had been burned. Stiff means not flexible or easy to move when you sit for a long time. Stark is also a synonym of stiff. She wanted to warm herself, people said. No one had the slightest suspicion of what beautiful things she had seen. No one even dreamed of the splendor in which with her grandmother she had entered on the joys of a new year. Suspicion, in this case, it means a feeling or a thought that something is even possible or true. Splendor is another word. It's one of the stronger words that means something amazing. Thank you for watching today's video. In my next video, I am explaining some of the most useless grammar rules you have ever been taught at school. Just go here and watch it. Take care and Merry Christmas!